So Axiom then has been around for more than 5 years, something like that. You founded a company and you've developed many different projects, from project management, services, mobile apps, a ton of stuff. But now most people know you because of CryptoKitties. And it seems like a wild departure from what you were doing. How did you personally end up being interested in blockchain?
So we've been interested in decentralization for a while, not necessarily blockchain. Blockchain for me is a means towards getting closer to a decentralized world. So we've been very interested in decentralization for a while and kind of struggled, though, to explain it to mainstream people. Because if you think about it, the value of decentralizing something accrues mostly to the consumer. And yet the consumer doesn't care about the words we use on stages like this, like true ownership or immutability or self-sovereignty or any of these concepts. So with CryptoKitties, we're kind of looking at this new platform and thinking, well, how do we explain the values inherent in a decentralized economy to people that don't want to be lectured? And we figured let's let them experience it and feel the values rather than hear them, if that makes sense.
And the values of CryptoKitties in particular is a bit different from most tokens out there, because it's non-fungible tokens, which means that each token is unique and you can't just swap it, just like you would swap a $10 bill for another $10 bill. Right. It's not the same value, it's not the same thing. But what's the story behind collectible tokens? How did you end up focusing on this for CryptoKitties?
I mean, like I said, the one primary kind of train of thought was, in order for decentralization to truly go mainstream, consumers need to understand the value, because there are very significant trade-offs in terms of cost, in terms of convenience, so on and so forth. So that was one train of thought, mostly led by our tech team. Our creative team was like, hey, this blockchain thing, it's new, we need to put cats on it, because cats need to go on everything that's new. And so those two...
Slowly taking over the internet.
That's right. I mean, not slowly, very quickly. But so those two trains of thought met in the middle and said, well, can we use the concept of selling Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is digitally scarce, 21 million. Bitcoin is the rules are embedded into in a way that nobody can change them. But people don't care about currencies. So can you take this concept and apply it to something other than something more relatable, something more emotional? And when it came to NFTs, we're sort of every single application that we looked at, we're like, you know, most things that you care about in life are non-fungible. The things you love are non-fungible. Your home, your family, your identity, your data, your passions,
and your cats.
And your cats. Yeah. And so why is all crypto fungible? Why is every other crypto asset the same as everything else? And so the only thing that matters is, like you were saying, the quantity. So CryptoKitties for us was a demonstration of a lot of these values inherent in blockchain, and we're trying to understand what does that look like in an entertainment context, in a gaming context. And we learned some things and we were surprised by some of it.
Based on what you're saying, it sounds like CryptoKitties was more like a proof of concept than something that was supposed to be a service.
It was the seed. It was a seed for a garden, if you will, and for us, I mean, I don't know how many people here have played CryptoKitties, but the breeding game that we created was reasonably complex to play it well, especially at current kind of gas prices. It costs a lot of money and it takes a lot of time, analysis. There are calculators out there. There are bots you can use. There's all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, what does that create? That just creates more assets. And now there's over 40 developer teams outside of our team that's working on different things you can do with these same kitties as kind of almost like a theme park ticket. So I bought a cat. Now that gives me access to all these different rides, from kitty races to kitty battles. Now I can dress up my cat in kitty hats, so on and so forth. And so for us, it wasn't designed to be, hey, here's this thing, and now this is a AAA game that's going to go on for 5-10 years. It's, hey, we started something, and that something is a movement, much more so than a game.
But were you interested in games in particular, or mostly about the digital asset element?
A little bit of both. I think games are an amazing way to teach new behaviors. So whether it's kind of teaching someone to jump through the hoops of actually understanding what keys mean and how MetaMask works and how to transfer money from their exchange to their wallet, so on and so forth. Games sort of give a need to do that, as opposed to, oh, I'm curious. It's a, no, I want that cat, or I want to win this. I want to win this challenge. I want to play with my friends, so on and so forth. So games have always been the method through which consumers understand new platforms, whether it's sort of the accelerometer on the phone, whether it's the physics engine on iPhone. So for us, games were very much a core focus, because if you think about it, digital assets, what's most interesting in a digital asset as compared to a physical asset? Well, the fact that you can program it. So what would you program it with, right? You would program it with interesting things that are interesting to people, and those are typically entertainment. And so we said, well, let's not just put a picture on the blockchain. Let's make it somewhat personalized. It should mean something different to the owner than it does to the viewer. So as the owner, I can choose to breed it, for example.
And that's why you made the kitties so cute then.
Yes.
So that it would be cool.
Well, it's not just the cute. Like that's we've been copied 100 times since we launched the product, and it's not just the art, it's not just the technology, it's not just the bios and the puns and this and that. It's the whole thing. Our writers are just as important as our artists, or just as important as our developers, and that's not something we see in this industry. That sort of, I guess, respect for interdisciplinary thinking in a lot of ways, despite the fact that blockchain itself is very much a Venn diagram of so many disparate fields.
So it's a combination of everything. So let's go back to the launch of CryptoKitties something like 9 months ago.
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Wow. CryptoKitties, it became an instant hit, basically. In maybe less than a week, there was a huge backlog of transactions on the Ethereum blockchain, because so many people were trying to trade kitties on CryptoKitties. Mm-hmm. How did you manage to get this early growth and to grow from zero to massive hype?
Honestly, that caught us by surprise, how quickly kind of it grew outside of the crypto ecosystem. We knew we had lightning in a bottle when we launched so we took a UI-less version of it and took it to ETH Waterloo, and we saw this thing's fun. Like we were having fun. The game was very cheap at the time. It would be like 10 cents to buy a cat and 2 cents to breed a cat, and you could tell that the mechanics were really enjoyable. It felt really good to be the first one to discover new cat attributes, get the mutation, this sort of thing. So we knew we had something cool, but we knew Ethereum couldn't scale, and so we didn't build on-ramps. We said, hey, use MetaMask. If you can't figure it out, your problem. You figure out how to get crypto into your account. So we were hoping that actually those barriers would stop a lot of new, sort of totally net new users coming in, but it didn't. And I think that, that speaks to kind of the brand that the team created, but more so sort of the public's interest in blockchain and hunger for engaging with this new sort of peer-to-peer sort of way of thinking beyond just currency, right? Like and I think we've very much seen that in our existing users. Unfortunately, though, we were blamed for every single problem that other than from crypto experts, we still get blamed.
Scalability and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if someone loses their cats or loses their MetaMask keys, they blame us. They're like, hey, why can't you reset my password? I want my cats back. If someone submits a transaction, can't figure out how to resubmit a new transaction with a higher gas fee at the same nonce to kind of make it go through and unblock the rest of the thing, they blame us. They say, hey, your product is buggy. So that was maybe the most humbling, but also sort of eye-opening impact of our launch.
I think it's the same for every tech product. If people install too many extensions into their browser and it ends up crashing, they're going to say that Google or Firefox is the issue, not the extension.
Most visible brand, yeah.
Exactly. But let's go back to the day you decided to launch. You say, okay, next week or in 2 weeks, we're going to make this public. How did you do it? Did you contact some friends? Did you put the game on Product Hunt? What did you do?
Definitely did Product Hunt. It was a lot. Like we launched November 28th. We had done the beta at ETH Waterloo October 25th. So there were a whole bunch of people playing on sort of the testnet, and those folks were the early base that we built around. And that's something I would highly recommend to folks: is get real people being a real community, because at the end of the day, that's what this space is all about. It's about the community.
Yeah, that's more valuable. And at some point, it became so huge that kitties ended up costing more than $10,000 each. Did you think, whoa, this is getting out of control?
So the cats, most of the cats that sold for high prices, we intended them. They were very unique, right? So it's the number one, number two, this sort of thing. I think we did not build good enough price discovery into the game so that a lot of people got burned buying maybe less valuable cats for high prices. And yeah, our objective was never to kind of make this game for millionaires. It was to say, hey, this is an on-ramp to blockchain. So the prices going up while we were kind of grateful from a business perspective, it actually hurt the game's, I think, appeal to the kinds of folks it was designed to appeal to.
So you mean people thought you needed to have tens of thousands of dollars
Correct.
worth of...
Or that making money was the point of the game. And for the last 3-4 months, we've been focused on tuning out the noise of people saying, oh, CryptoKitties prices are this and that, and saying, well, we have people that are coming back every single day, spending lots of money, buying things that they really form emotional attachment to. And we want to understand what's special about blockchain gaming beyond making money, because if you're an app developer and you create a thing that gives people money, obviously they're going to use your thing. But how do you create high retention, deep community feeling without this kind of... And
you mentioned this briefly with the platform Play. Now you can play other games with your kitties. You built a sort of universe around CryptoKitties. What are your learnings from that now? Is it working? Are people actually using their digital assets in other ways?
Absolutely. I mean, so each of our kind of Kittyverse apps are like a niche of our niche, basically. So they're very, very small today. We're not driving traffic to any of them, and all of them are experiments at this stage. But our next phase is working with each of those folks to help make a sustainable business model for people building on top of CryptoKitties, help us send our users to them and have them essentially have the user have a great experience going through this sort of universe of games. And for us as game designers, that becomes not so much designing one game, but designing an ecosystem. And I don't think we figured it out. I think it's super, super early days. We just announced that we have this now formal program where people can apply and work with us, because to date, people just built stuff and launched it. But I think, like I said, super early days.
You also announced recently that you raised money, $12 million, from Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures. Why did you choose the traditional VC model instead of an ICO or maybe higher fees on the platform?
I think it was mainly about getting the right people around the table. I mean, first of all, I think ICOs, I don't like it when people talk about ICOs as non-dilutive financing, because you're by definition putting a portion of your company's value into the protocol and you're selling those things. So if you think that's not valuable, you're pulling the wool over someone's eyes. And so I don't think of it as, oh, token sale would have been non-dilutive, but equity is. At the end of the day, Axiom Zen, I built the business. I started business 6 years ago. We built 4 companies in that time. 2 of them are profitable. We never raised money for the parent company. And so when this one, we just knew we had something big, and we knew we had a differentiated perspective on it. Most of the teams we talked to out there weren't thinking about this. We're really the first consumer entertainment company on the blockchain. And so I wanted help. I wanted to have the right people around the table to help build this into a real enterprise. And Fred and Chris have sort of, they saw what we were doing before we even did it in a certain sense. I mean, I remember our first call with Fred Wilson. He said, so guys, this is what you need to do. And he basically told our pitch to us. And he got where we were going before we even talked to him. So it was, I think for me, I've been in startups for a long time. I think it's important to have proper corporate governance. It's important to sort of you have a fiduciary duty to people when you take their capital. And so I don't think that equity, at least all the rules are there. It's clear. Everyone understands what they're getting. And so that's the main reason we made that decision. And everything happened very quickly. I mean, we weren't intending to even raise venture money right before launching CryptoKitties. We intended to sort of take some more time, but yeah.
Worked out. I think VCs are going to be very happy with this answer because they're trying to pitch the idea that they bring more than just money to the table.
Yes.
What did you put in your pitch deck exactly? Did you talk only about CryptoKitties?
We didn't have a pitch deck.
Or did you talk about other projects? But you talked with them on the phone, you said.
Yes.
Did you talk about other projects or just CryptoKitties?
It's really about blockchain entertainment. So for us, CryptoKitties is our Mario, right? Like it's a brand that we created that we're going to be investing into. These assets, there are over 800,000 kitties. They're going to be used in future products we work on. The breeding game itself, we're making it better. We're making it more interesting. We're adding a lot of collector elements around it. So CryptoKitties is very much it is a sort of North Star for us. And it's what separates us in a lot of ways from, companies that don't have this little cute guy. So it is a very important part of our thesis, but what I think our investors are mostly interested in is really bringing this value of, so what is blockchain? I mean, everyone talks about blockchain in these fancy words, but for me, it simply allows taking something that you had to give control of to a government or to a corporation and giving it to a community. And so that's what we're trying to figure out is what does that look like in the context of normal humans that don't need to learn about sort of, everyone here shops online. No one here, okay. Many people here don't know how SSL works, right? And most of us use the internet every day without realizing there's the protocols it runs on. So I think that's our perspective, is that decentralization is valuable to end consumers, and how do we bridge that from where we're sitting today and bring billions of people to a peer-to-peer economy rather than to a centralized economy. And I think that that's not obvious how to do that, but digital assets are going to be the biggest component of that, because if you think about it, it's the first and only asset class that's really unbounded by anything other than human ingenuity and imagination. And so the only real kind of exponential asset class, and that includes cryptocurrencies, of course. But there's just so much more surface area when you create non-fungibles, and you can kind of add a cultural sort of depth to that.
So you talked about bringing cryptocurrencies to billions of people. Maybe let's
decentralization.
Decentralization. Let's start with the CryptoKitties community. How many people have actually played the game until now?
We've got, I think, 250,000 email authenticated users or something like that. Less than 100,000 people have sort of loaded up their own money and bought their own cat. Many people are onboarded into the game by others. We have most of those players are collectors, right? So they have 1, 2, 3, 10, 20 cats. They don't go back to the site every day. They come back every once in a while. And then the breeding community, the folks that are there hitting the smart contracts every day, that's a few thousand people, but they're spending hundreds of Ether on a weekly basis, creating the assets that everyone else is sort of collecting. Okay,
and we don't have a lot of time left, but how do you grow from maybe 100,000 to 10 million?
Well, hopefully with the help of a lot of people working on scaling solutions, but also, I think by trying to think about, how do we get rid of a lot of the steps to get people to engage with this.
A lot of the friction, yeah.
A lot of the friction, and how do we maybe people don't need to buy a cat. Maybe they can earn a cat. We don't have the answers yet, but we're running a lot of experiments to figure it out.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.